Welcome, everyone. My name is Deborah Shea, and I'm a career coach in the CDO at Yale School of Management. So happy to be here, and thank you all for participating and joining in our session today. I will be moderating our session on consulting, and we have a great panel of second-year students, Tang, Andrew Sime, Darius, Charon, and Lacey Neel Huff, and each will share their stories in just a bit, but I'd like to give you a little bit of a run through of how our next 50 minutes will unfold. So I'll give a little bit of a run through on what the CDO does, and then Lacey will give a brief overview of consulting, and then Andrew will share a brief debrief on the consulting club, and then our panelists will go through a bit about themselves, share their backgrounds on what their pre-SOM experience was like, what their summer internship was like, and also what their full-time focus will be. We'll have some time for questions and answers. We've added in time for that, obviously with this great panel. And if you do have questions, please populate those into the Q&A. We already have one populated now. I do have a lot of questions that have been pre-populated, so we're going to start with those first, but we hope to get to as many as we can. I know that there's a lot of students, over 200, that will be joining, so we'll do our very, very best. And then we'll wrap up with some final questions. So on to the CDO, just very, very quickly. So I joined SOM 5.5 years ago, best job of my life, I have to say. The CDO, I think, I might be speaking from a biased perspective, but I think it does offer a lot of resources to students. Our goal is really simple. It's to be as supportive as we can to the students who are seeking internships and full-time jobs. And we help them along the way with their recruitment efforts and their strategies and so forth. So we've got on one side the coaching team, which I'm a part of. So we work on everything from programming to helping with strategy and resume reviews, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, mock interviews, and so on and so forth, to name a few. And then on the other side of the house, we have the employer partnership team. And they are the ones who deal specifically with the recruiters at various companies. So they're all industry specific. So they've got great intel and a deep, deep knowledge of what's going on by industry. So that is really, really key and really kind of important. And it works really nice. It's a good mix. So now on to the program. So I would love for Lacey to talk a little bit about what consulting industry is all about from her perspective.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. One thing I'll say just to start, my first CDO conversation ever before I ever came to school was with Deborah. And when I told her I was interested in consulting, I really, in my head, was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I felt kind of silly. So if that is you, that is totally normal. And being curious and here is exactly where you should be. You have plenty of time to figure it out. Consulting at the broadest, highest level is basically you are an external party working with a company or an organization to solve their most pressing questions or problems. And they're usually complex or ambiguous or time constrained. And that's really at the biggest level. That can be across industries, it can be across locations. And then as you start looking at firms, that'll narrow in. So some firms live at that level. They have lots of offices, they're international, they work across multiple industries. Some are more specific. So you have firms that focus on tech or healthcare or economics or social impact. And all of those are represented here. All of those recruit here. But as you come to SOM and start looking around, you can kind of find your home and start seeing which of those you want to recruit for.
Thank you. I'd like to pass the baton to Andrew to share a little bit about the consulting club.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deborah. So the consulting club is what I consider kind of a very unique value proposition here at Yale. But it's only one part of like kind of like what I call the three legs of your recruiting stool. So you kind of have the CDO, you have your interaction with the company reps, and then there's the consulting club, which is a student-run, student-guided organization that sort of tracks along throughout your entire recruiting journey. So it kind of starts with kind of coaching you on how you're going to like reach out, set up meetings, which we call them coffee chats. That was new to me when I came to school. So we kind of go through how do you do that or networking piece, and then it moves into like a learning curriculum that sort of introduces you to the interview process, which is really sort of the big bar you have to clear in order to secure one of these opportunities. So it's one of the largest clubs at SOM, and I would say everyone on the call is a participant on it. And the best part also is even though it's a large club, is they sort everyone into small like learning teams where you get mentorship from your second years. So it's kind of like your one-stop shop on like what is consulting all the way through to how do I secure an offer and how do I sort of like support each other throughout the process. But more than happy to talk about more specific questions about that here today.
Great, thank you so much. Now I'd like to go through having each of you share a little bit about your background. Again, your pre-SOM, your summer internship, and your full-time focus. So Adam, can you give us a start?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Deborah. Hi, everyone. My name's Adam. I am originally from Long Island, New York. Before coming to SOM, I was a technology consultant at EY, and before that, I worked at Royal Caribbean. My background is in hospitality, so was very interested in focusing on doing things that were more customer-centric, thinking about customer journeys. And so this past summer, I had the opportunity to intern at Deloitte, where I served on a hospitality client, helping them revamp their loyalty program. One of the things that I aspire to do after graduating from SOM is to continue my journey on building out customer journeys and building out customer experiences with the clients that I work on in consulting, and potentially even beyond that, thinking about more strategy-based work around that. I'm not sure where it's going to take me yet, but I definitely know that I want to hop into consulting upon graduating here from SOM. Back to you, Deborah.
Yeah, Andrew, you're next.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew. I'm originally from Hartford, Connecticut. And before coming to SOM, I spent 9 years in the United States Navy as a logistics officer. I'm using my MBA as a career pivot, obviously into consulting. So this past summer, I worked at McKinsey in the Connecticut office, and I was specifically working in commercial aviation in growth strategy. That is kind of just a luck of the draw, I would say. So it sort of piqued my interest. But my specific focus when I go back to McKinsey next fall is going to be in industrial-based development. So we're kind of like focusing, you can imagine that as like being about building out shipyards, building out our manufacturing base in the United States and around the world. More than happy to answer questions about career switching, veterans and affinity groups, and how that fits at school and when you're talking to companies. And also I am married and I moved here with my family. So I'm also happy to talk about that and navigating that with how you think about your career and sort of moving to New Haven.
Beautiful, thank you. Darius, you're next.
Thanks, Deb, and thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Darius. I'm originally from Minnesota. I got an engineering degree, and then I went back to Minnesota to work as a project manager for retail point-of-sale hardware. Did that for about 4 years, and then decided to get my MBA, and it led me here to SOM. I also wanted to make a career pivot, and I thought consulting would be one of the best choices, and it's really exciting to work in different industries and opportunities, as well as kind of have like a day-to-day challenge. So with that, this summer I interned at BCG in Dallas, also looking to do a location switch. And I worked on a really cool project this summer of a regulated electric utility, trying to scope out like what the grid of the future looks like. So a little bit of environmental impact there as well. I'm delighted to be going back after completing the second year here at SOM, and looking forward after that. I'd love to share a little bit about that later.
Thank you so much. And Lacey.
I am Lacey. I am from Texas. Was in Austin before I came here, but I've also been New York and LA, so a little bit of everywhere. and I've done a little bit of a lot. So I was a teacher at one point, speechwriter, and then before school, was doing employee and executive communications at a health tech startup. I was at Boston Consulting Group, or BCG, in Austin. I was location constrained. I knew I wanted to go there, so really was looking at opportunities in Austin and found my way to BCG. This summer, I worked on a social impact case in education, and I was doing external research for a foundation around public education and how they could spend their money in a way that really could make an impact. I, like Andrew, came to school with a partner. A lot of my questions around consulting were around wanting to be a mom, wanting to have a family, and doing this work. And I want to stay in social impact. I'm all in on that in the public sector, so happy to talk about it.
Thank you so much. So there were some questions regarding, so we'll just stay on this theme, Lacey, if you don't mind. So there were a lot of questions about, if somebody's interested in social impact, how would one go about doing that in the world of looking at various consulting firms, and how did you make your way with BCG?
Yeah. So one, there is a social impact consulting club separate from consulting that people can get involved in. And there are firms that specialize in social impact consulting, whether that's economic development, whether that's sustainability, across the gamut. My experience, I had some experience in healthcare and healthcare accessibility, but I didn't really feel like I knew enough to go in and have expertise. You don't have to, but that took me to looking at the bigger firms. And I also had a great professor here in a healthcare class, Teresa Shaheen, who has done a lot of social impact work. And something she said to me was, anytime I'm putting a team together to do something, I love having someone with a consulting background because of how many skills they have, and they can look at this in a really kind of specific way. So that was one reason that I ended up going this way. BCG has a really robust social impact team across a lot of different areas of social impact. And in recruiting for Austin, I met a partner and a senior partner that focus on education, have built that out in Texas, and that really appealed to me. And I was lucky enough to work on one of their cases this summer. I think that for me, the way that I look at it is social impact a lot of times lives in the public sector, but it interacts so much with the private sector and companies, and understanding what incentivizes them and how to work with them. And so I think consulting actually gives you this really great mix of being able to speak both languages and leverage things from the private sector to make the biggest impact possible on the social side.
Thank you so much. One other question, and it's a big theme that has come about, is how easy or how difficult was it for you all to pivot from your pre-SOM experiences to consulting? So Darius, would you be able to field that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think in general, as you get into the process, you start to learn that a lot of the people in consulting come from very diverse backgrounds. Not many people actually just go straight from undergrad and are consultants all the way through their careers. Most typically, they are actually coming from MBAs, and they're coming from various industries such as engineers, veterans, even teachers, and all over the place. And it's like really cool to see that they like to collect a very diverse group of people, not just diverse professionally, but also diverse individually. So for me personally, I think making the pivot, while it's not easy to necessarily do the whole recruiting process, it was easy in that they are very open and willing to people from different areas and with different expertise. I think I saw even a question in here about like, how do we use our previous experience to highlight ourselves, and that's exactly what you want to do with your resume and CV, and build on your unique experience, and that's kind of how you stand out. And that doesn't necessarily lead to you working on very specialized projects. If you kind of do more general strategic consulting, for example, if you're going to do like a healthcare specific, then yes, like having a healthcare background might be more valuable. But I think general consulting is still the larger practice for most firms, and they really do appreciate that diverse professional experience.
Great, thank you for that. And there was a follow-up, and it was interesting because you kind of touched on it, Darius, and some of the students who are on now are asking, well, how do you choose a lane? How do you choose a practice? How does that come about? Does anyone, Darius, do you want to take that, or does anyone want to field that?
I could say a few more words and send it up to someone else. But as far as choosing it, I think the general path is, again, most people start looking at the larger firms and they want you to be a generalist at first. There are some instances where, like technology specific or medical specific related to experience, where you can early on like lean into your experience. But for the most part, you are not necessarily as much choosing what you're going to work on. You're more going to choose where you want to work and with what firm.
Andrew, do you want to add any?
Yeah,
Color?
absolutely. I mean, I think one thing I want everyone to think about is, yes, it's really good to define in recruiting like the areas you want to work in, but like if you're going to do like an internship, typically you don't have a lot of choice on that. It's more of like available work, and they're trying to make sure you have a wholesome experience. So you kind of almost like have to look at consulting as it's more of like a process, a theory of problem solving that can almost fit in any industry. And that's what the internship is like teaching, and they're evaluating you against. And then you can, and what you're going to do to find your lane, a lot of times I've been told and kind of seen, is a lot of times it's like kind of people driven. You kind of find your like coaching tree, or I probably shouldn't say, find like your group of people that you enjoy working with, and then they'll keep pulling you in the projects. So I've found more and more that it was, hey, like I'm in insurance and it like sounds boring, but you don't understand, like I have a really good time with the people and the partners that sort of pull me through, and that has opened so many doors I never imagined. So it's good to have a theory, open mind when it goes to your internship, but then just like keep an eye out on the people that you like working with. And sometimes, the insurance people could be cool at one firm, and at another firm they might not. And so you might end up gravitating towards a different industry. That's sort of my perspective on that.
And jumping on that theme, some of the questions have also been, can you all just kind of describe the differences? And people talk about MBB. Can one person raise their hand to take this one, just to give a little flavor of perhaps what the business models are of the three, and maybe what some of the differentiators might be? Adam, do you want to take it?
Sure, but I can start, and maybe Lacey, Andrew, and Darius, you guys can tag on since you guys were at McKinsey and BCG.
Yep.
Yeah, so across the three firms, there are different like culture differences, I would say. Generally, they all operate and compete on very similar scales, but there are a lot of cultural differences. Some of them are more office specific. Some of them are more expertise in certain areas. So I would say I'm gonna actually let Andrew answer on McKinsey, and maybe Lacey you can chat about BCG. But I know we don't have anyone here from Bain, but my close friend here works at Bain, and he mentioned that it's it's a pretty fun environment. There was a lot of work to do. A lot of the work that he was working on at Bain was very PE focused. That's a lot of, I think they're the largest PE based firm. So that's a lot of the projects that they were working on there. Can't I'm not going to speak to the culture because I wasn't there, but that's a quick lay of the land for Bain. Andrew, you
Perfect.
want to chat
Yeah.
about McKinsey quickly?
Andrew, you want to take it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think a big distinguisher between like McKinsey and like a Bain is Bain has like a choice that they don't have a government client. So one of McKinsey's largest continuous clients is like the United States government and other governments around the world. So that's always been like a huge line of business for them. They also, it's the way that they staff projects. They staff globally. That doesn't really mean that you're going to get a phone call and you're going to be on a plane to Dubai tomorrow. It more means that you're not necessarily going to have to work for partners in your local office, or if your specialty is not, if the partners that lead your like industry or function area aren't in your local office, doesn't mean you can't work in that. And you'll just probably be on a plane like sort of Tuesday through Thursday, going to wherever your client is or co-locating with your team in where other offices are throughout the country. So it's kind of like the McKinsey global model, and then having that sort of government, large government practice is how I would describe McKinsey.
Cool. I can take BCG, and I can also speak a tiny bit to Bain, just because those are the two firms that I was most interacting with and interested in. Another thing about Bain is that they are almost the opposite of a global practice. So if you go to an office, they try to have you work more localized, less travel potentially. It doesn't mean you won't travel, but you'll probably, if you're in Austin, you'll probably be working in Texas or maybe Louisiana, like somewhere close. BCG is also a global firm. Again, really what that means is that you can see they have like a board of the projects that are coming in. You can see that. And if there's something that's interesting to you, but it's not in your area, that's totally fine. There is travel. I didn't travel this summer because I happen to be working with people in my office, but most people travel. Happy to talk about that. I think Darius, you traveled probably more than I did. BCG, something that I found interesting, and this is, it's also office specific, and actually all three firms. Something that is interesting is we think about it in terms of offices, but a lot of them have networks. So like being in BCG Austin, I'm really part of BCG Southwest. And so Austin, Dallas, Houston all kind of work together. There's a lot of exchange between them. And I know other areas do that as well. And I found the BCG, one thing that attracted me to it was the people. They were really interested in getting to know me. They were very open. It was very personable. And the other thing is there was this really big focus from a lot of people I talked to about like practical solutions for their clients. It's not the fanciest thing. It's not the most complex thing. It is the thing that this company or organization is best set up to do to solve the problem that they have. And that really spoke to me and was something that differentiated BCG for me.
Yeah, so for anyone on this call, the just basic is that McKinsey, as Andrew was saying, has that global model. BCG has more of a regional model, which you were speaking to, Lacey, and Bain is more of a home office. So you work with, you travel with, you get to know the people in your office, and in the other firms, it has a bit of a broader feel. But each has its own personalities and so forth. So speaking on that, one of the questions that was coming up is, how do you know? How do you even, figure out what geographic area, what firms should I focus on? What geography should I focus on? Anyone want to take that?
I'm happy to jump on
Okay.
like firm. Sorry, hold on. So I think I was kind of like geographically constrained and like interested in being in the Northeast, but coming to SOM and being in New Haven, Connecticut does not mean that you're tied to the Northeast. I think based off of what Lacey and Darius have shown, that that's not true. And I would say that that's true for all firms. You can go anywhere in the country. I think though that is probably the most important thing that I would think about before you head into the recruiting process, because it really helps you economize your effort if you know where you want to go regionally, or like what type of area in the country you want to live. So like solve for your life kind of versus like, and then eventually the firm part you'll figure out as you talk to people in that region where you want to live. Once again, this is just my opinion on it. But when it comes to picking the firms, I would recommend that you kind of cast a wide net. I know that we've only spoken to McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, but I had wonderful interactions with EY and Deloitte. I think, I mean, I had a couple others in L. Carney. So I do think that there is potentially an over emphasis maybe on MBB, and that there's so many a wide breadth of opportunities in consulting in general that you could still do pure play strategy. You could really do interesting private equity consulting and even more like social consulting in these smaller niche firms. And there's SOMers in those as well. So I think it's like you kind of get into the process, and it's where the alumni networks are will help reveal to you, but focus on where you want to live. And that's kind of the magic of the consulting industry, is that we have planes and trains and quick ways to get to wherever the clients are.
I think that's actually spot on, because a lot of the firms are looking for that connection between the personal and the professional. Do you have a base? Do you have friends or family? Have you been, living in a particular region? Are there reasons professionally? Are there practices? Is it a healthcare practice or PE or whatever that speaks to you that you really want to be part of that somewhere down the road? So I think that if you can combine that, that would be beautiful. Sometimes it's just who you meet and where you feel that connection. But I think generally speaking, if you can speak to that combination of that personal and professional reason why, it's much more compelling when you're talking to representatives from each of the firms. And to Andrew's point and everyone else's point, there is life beyond MBB, big time. Big time. And so, and there's also a question about how does this impact consulting recruitment, impact international students. There are those, obviously the MBBs do sponsor for international students. There are fewer opportunities, unfortunately, for international students, but there are still robust avenues for international students to pursue. And even if it's not strictly with a firm that we're talking about now, there are internal consulting roles that are aplenty. So we don't want you to feel like it's only these 3 companies, and that if you don't get those, then you're out of luck. There are many that have leadership development programs or corporate internal consulting roles. So I want you all to know that the net is quite wide for you, and the possibilities are quite wide. And we have had students who have gone down the path of the general consulting road and maybe not made it to an internship, and then came back for their second year. Perhaps they built upon the relationships they had first year and were able to secure a great full-time role in a consulting firm. So there's a lot of ways, a lot of paths and a lot of opportunities to get perhaps where you want to go. So one of the questions, I'm gonna punt this one to Andrew, and I know that I'm going to you a bunch, but I think this is absolutely relevant. Some of the students are asking about, so how does SOM or Yale in general help with that family balance? Did you feel that there were any resources that you could tap?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think SOM in general, if you want to start with, there is a partners club. And that's not just, you don't have to be married to be a part of the partners club. You can move here with your life partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. They can come and visit and take part in that. So there's connectivity for them outside of, just sort of like being your +1 at things. But there's employment opportunities. I know a couple of my classmates where their spouse works on campus if they are moving here and have to leave a job. And there's great connectivity to the city. So there's always, they can get permission to join the Slack, which is kind of how we manage our communication about clubs and opportunities. They can come to those lunch and learns. They can participate fully in the entire community. So I think in terms of that, it's I think the biggest, most disruptor of moving, if you're not going to be the student, is you're leaving behind a social life that you have. And I'm I'm telling you that there's maybe, I don't know what the percentage is, but it just seems like there is a lot of people that are here with partners already.
Yeah.
And that sort of is also a good network to find out where's a good place to live, maybe even get a handoff from a second year. And just, so I've found that there's just a great support. And that even extended to people that also had children, because there's plenty of students that have kids. And I just ran into a second year last year, actually ran into a childcare issue, and his professor actually let him bring his kid to class. Less serious, I brought my son to wine class this past Monday. It's not actually like that academic. It's really just a wine class. But anyways, my point is that it's a very welcoming environment for you, your partner. And it's really, once again, it's like, how much do you want to self-select into with your partner? Because also, like, no one's going to be like telling you have to pull away. And it's about striking a balance between your recruiting, your academics, and your personal life, and find out how that you want that to fit. I've found that SOM, the students here, everyone that moves here, even if you don't have a partner, it's a unique value proposition to move to New Haven, Connecticut for school when you compare to other schools that are in cities. So I think you find that everyone has this theory or like demonstrated commitment to this community when they move here. And maybe my fellow classmates can speak to that, but that's what I've felt and observed. And I think that's extended to my partner.
Thank you so much. So one question that has come up a lot is, how were you able to take in some of the resources that SOM or the CDO offers to help you in your recruitment efforts? And it could also be the club as well. Anyone want to take that one?
I can
Lacey.
in part, because I was thinking it when Andrew was talking. As Deborah knows, I came in and was like, didn't really know where to start career-wise. And I think my constraints were less around like, I want to go into consulting, now what? And I started, and Deborah really helped shape this for me, and spent a lot of time with me working out like my North Stars and my values for the next steps of my life, and what were those. And those constraints actually led me to, I only applied to 2 consulting firms because those were the ones that I felt like I had really clear answers to the questions I had about the values I had, and if it would fit with me. And that's not to say the others didn't. It just, for me, that's where I landed. But sometimes it is helpful to have some of those constraints figured out for you. For Andrew and me, that might have been location. For other people, it might be being international and prioritizing opportunities that give visas, right? Like whatever that is, it is helpful. And for me, I found that support with Deborah and with the CDO. And then what it allowed me to do was to go into the community here at Evans and get really curious and explore industries and areas, and like take the pressure off of what's the job and say, what do I get excited about? What's kind of lighting up my, like, passions? And those 2 things intersected into where I ended up. But yeah, I don't think I'd be here without the CDO support.
You. Anyone else want to add in any words?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. Like throughout the whole recruitment process, like one of the greatest resources is actually your fellow students. The second years do a great job of like passing it back to the first years as far as consulting club, case team leaders, and really like helping people prepare, because you come in and you don't really understand the process, and then you have some people to be there and like kind of help you and hold your hand. But at the same time, you also have a large group of great people in your class who are also recruiting at the same time. So a lot of the casing you'll do and like the case preparation for interviews will actually be with your classmates. And I think just, obviously we have one of the best student communities here, but then on top of that, you have like the people who are trying to follow the same path as you, and you're all trying to work together. It really felt like a supportive thing as opposed to we're all competing for the same spots. So just want to put a little props out to the students, both first year and second year.
I love that. Thank you so much. One of the big themes that is bubbling up is how important was networking for the securing of your roles? Anyone want to take that?
I'm here.
Whether, okay, to Darius's point, whether it's second years, whether it's recent alums, whether it's, people further afield.
Yeah. So building off of Lacey's and Andrew's and Darius's point on, finding the role that's right for you and knowing all the constraints that you have in life, whether it might be location or family or other stuff. Networking was super important for me in finding out, for example, like the differences between the firms and understanding how I can manage my career and see my life at a particular firm. So one of the things that I learned, for example, about Deloitte through recruiting and through networking was that the firm is really good and has done a lot of work in the loyalty practice, which I thought was very aligned with my background and my interests and working on something more customer centric. And I also learned, for example, at BCG, they're really great at doing a lot of retail work, for example, at least in the Mid-Atlantic offices. And so through networking, you learn a little bit more about like industry stuff. You also learn a little bit more about some of the culture elements that are office specific, things that things that you may value, for example, affinity groups or extracurriculars that you may be involved in at work, as well as just recruiting in general. One of my favorite things to learn about during recruiting and networking is learning about the alumni community that exists at all these firms. SOM has a tremendous amount of alumni within the consulting space, and it's so fun to get to know them and really learn about how their careers really took off from SOM and the courses they've taken and how that kind of helped them think about problems and think about solutions as they approach their client work.
Can I actually jump in on that alumni
please.
comment? Because it's something I wanted to kind of highlight that I was able to experience is that, yes, Yale SOM has a huge alumni base, especially a lot of these firms. But I think a very important thing to call out is that you also are at Yale. And the Yale alumni base, the undergrads and other graduate programs, they also recruit into consulting. They also have amazing connectivity across so many different industries. And my understanding is that some of the other schools, like their business school brand, might isolate them slightly different. At Yale, it's like Yale first, and I've never not had a Yale alumni from whatever school, degree program, walk of life when they came to Yale, not take my phone call. And so just to pile on to the Yale SOM network, you have the entirety of the Yale Alumni Connect network. And I found that to be invaluable and come up at very odd and interesting times to my advantage beyond just your initial SOM alumni base.
Thank you. How critical did you think networking was in securing your role?
Can I share a little bit, Deb?
Please,
Because I
yeah.
kind of want to add some context as well as like how it typically works, especially at SOM and in the MBA process. As Andrew mentioned earlier, there's a thing called coffee chats, and they're really like small networking meetups with people from the different firms. A lot of those happen very formally and informally as you start to meet people from the firm. But typically what happens is there's like a kickoff event. The firms actually come here in multiple capacities for different events. Sometimes they're fun. Last year, I got to do an escape room with a small group from one firm. So it gives you a chance to meet some of the recruiters as well as some of the people in the firms. And from that, it's kind of like an opening door to get some of these coffee chats, as well as there's some online portals you can sign up as well. And that's how you get to have these conversations where you're learning about the firms, you're learning about the specific offices and why you should go there. It's not only an opportunity for them to learn about you, but for you to learn about them. And in some instances, it is pretty crucial that put in a little bit of work and show a bit of excitement and really connect with some of the people, because more than just showing your expertise and your ability to case and the value that you could add to the firm, they really want to make sure that you're a good culture fit. I think across the board, a lot of the firms really do care about culture. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily 100% evaluative, but being able to have these conversations with people and connect to them on a personal level will not only make them want you, but you'll find out why you want to actually go to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That actually,
Go.
sorry, Deb, I don't want to interrupt you. That actually
No,
made me
please.
bounce.
Go for
Sorry,
it.
Lacey, do you want to go?
Yeah, I was just gonna say one other thing that's helpful with networking that I found helpful was you'll start to see patterns in the things they want to talk to you about your background. And that actually helps you start preparing for those conversations with firms a little better and framing your experience and seeing like, oh, like I worked with senior leaders and that was something that came up in every conversation. So by the time I got to the interview, I'm leading with that. And I think that that's another really helpful part of networking that can help you hone your story.
Thank you. Andrew, go.
Yeah, really quick. I mean, consulting is like two pieces. It's can you do the work and can you like handle client relationships, right? So doing that networking across people, you're helping create their image of you in their brain of your ability to do both. So, the networking piece is showing that you might be able to, highlight your interest, your background, and relate that and what that could look like, when you're at a client site.
Thank you. A lot of questions were coming up. Are there specific courses? I know that first year you've got your core, but from your perspective, are there any core classes or electives that you're finding that are really key to really helping set the path for your consulting role?
Can start off
Adam?
here. In the core curriculum, one of the classes that come to mind is competitor, which is a class on strategy, where you learn about how firms basically compete, game theory. You learn about pricing, and optimization. But the next level course to that, which I thought was very helpful for me in consulting, was this class called competitive strategy, which is the next level on this core class. And it's taught by two all-star professors, Fiona Scott Morton and Kevin Williams. And in this class, you'll learn about things like entry strategy, auctions, pricing, regulation, impact of competitors entering your space, how to think about quantity, and additional the next level of like game theory. And this was like, for me, I wish I took this class when I was recruiting last year because it really helps think about like different angles and different perspectives on how you can think about solutioning for your clients. And it's very real and academic based, but also it's used in the real world. And uh, I was very grateful to have taken that class, and I'm currently teaching the class next semester, and would totally recommend 10 out of 10. I'm not sure if Lacey, Andrew, or Darius, if you guys have other recommendations and courses as well. I would love to hear.
I just have something quick about the core, and that your first year is heavily based doing assignments and projects with your learning team, and I think that's hand in hand with consulting. You're always going to be working with a team, and a lot of the times you're not going to choose it. It's similar here. You get thrown in a learning team, and it's going to challenge you to connect and be able to work with your team, through your first 3 quarters, if not the whole first year. And so just your ability to connect with them and work efficiently and be able to delegate tasks is really important to succeed here as well as in consulting.
Thank you.
I'll
Anyone else? Go ahead, Lacey.
I'll go super quickly just because I've taken kind of a different tack in my second year. Agree with everything everyone has said 100%. Because I know that I kind of want to live in the public sector and social impact space. I have taken advantage of something that is really specific to Yale, which is going to different schools and taking courses. And so for the social impact public sector area and getting staffed on those, I wanted to make sure that I understood those worlds and had a little bit of knowledge, like diving deeper. And so I'm taking a class in economic development. I took public health entrepreneurship. That is cross-listed with the public health school. I'm in the School of the Environment taking forest dynamics and classes on like sustainable ocean policy. So there's really a lot of ways that you can go. And that is something that is so specific to Yale that has been amazing this year as I kind of figure out the next steps with consulting.
Thank you. So one question that I will pose to each of you is that what do you wish that you had known what do you wish someone had told you before you started here at SOM?
I can go.
Okay.
I think as you all go on your journey for MBAs, it's have a reminder, like you're gonna have a lot of fun. I know it seems like you're gonna be worried and stressing about your future and your career and school work, and that all comes and goes, but like this goes by really fast, and I really wish someone told me like I was gonna be having this much fun. Um, and you're gonna meet a lot of great people and enjoy it. So wherever you decide to go, uh, remind yourself to have some fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, mine is similar to Darius's. I think that going to do your MBA opens up a lot of doors. It really opens up the pipeline to all the possibility things that that you can achieve. And I would really emphasize living in the moment because you will have a lot of fun and you want to enjoy it and remember it.
Thank you.
I would say you're in a space, and I see it in the questions right now, and it won't stop once you get here and you start recruiting, where you are looking at yourself under a microscope. And the tendency there is like, what do I not have? What is insufficient? Like, what are the vulnerabilities that they're like gonna look at and maybe discount me? And I would just say, like, that's normal, that's valid. We all did it, but like, you have so many strengths. The fact that you're here in this conversation means that you are, already on a really incredible path, and like lean into those strengths. Make sure that you show up with them because other people are seeing them. That is what's interesting about you. That's what's going to set you apart. And you all have them. We all have them.
You.
Great. I should have volunteered to go first. All right. So I guess what I would say to think about is I think the most important thing about your MBA experience is the people you go to school with. And it's not just because it's going to like have all that fun and all that in the time. This is the network of people that you're going to have. Like, think about these people 10 years from now. So you're using the network that the school provides you now that you can reach into, but then you're also building this network that's going to be the one that you provide back to the school later. So is this a place so go to the in-person events when you can, go to the welcome weekends, and just take the opportunity to embrace the school and use the power of visualization. Like, do I like the people that I'm going to be here with? Because you're going to struggle together, you're going to have fun together, you're going to learn together. And honestly, this is like a huge pivot in your life, not just your career. Like, this could be a whole new friend group for you. So I would just focus on the community of people that you want to see yourself in, because at the end of the day, business school is business school. Like, we're not reinventing economics here at SOM. Well, maybe we are, but I just focus on the people, because that's, I think what shapes your experience and your outcomes.
Perfect. Thank you all. My goodness. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so very much. You all have such different but very, very rich backgrounds and experiences to pull from. And I'm sure and I hope that all of you on our call today got something out of these great 4 people who have shared their wins with each of you. So I thank you very, very much for being on our call. We hope to see you here next year. And, we wish you all the very, very best. Good luck.